So in this part of the video, we'll be taking a look at how we can do both high-resolution screenshots inside of Unreal Engine 5, and then we can set up a very simple sequencer to basically do an animation that you see here, where we can animate the camera move, and then we can actually render this out as a movie so you could use it for your portfolio. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at this. So before we get too deep into the creation of the screenshots and then also the sequencer, I wanted the ships for this part to actually remain still and stationary and not have the rotation movement to it and the up and down motion. Now we've already looked at how we can expose values, and we can get this to where we can make the up value and down value, and we can do that per blueprint that we pull in. And we could just make those 0 and make that pretty easy, but it might not be so apparent what we could do with the rotation. What I did, and I'll show you this for each one of these examples, this is what I did, is if we take a look at the actual rotating movement, and we see that the thing that it's doing is saying rotation rate. So all I did was click and drag this in here, and that'll get a reference to that node in there. And then if you click and then drag out, let me go ahead and break the connection to that. If we click and drag out and say rotation like this, and we can say set rotation rate, and that'll give us this node that we have here, just like this. And all I did for that is I actually right clicked on there and said promote to a variable, and then that gave me a rotation rate that you see here. Let me plug this back up. So this gave us this value. Remember, if we compile, we'll get access to this, and we can set a default value. I just set the default value of that set to that to 0. And if we click this variable, if we take a look over here, and we turn on this eye icon, if we compile and then save that, that will give us some access and controls to whenever we drag out the blueprint into the world. We should have access to the up and down value, and we have access to the rotation rate, and we can set all those to 0, and then we don't have any motion on those parts. So I just wanted to call that out, that's what is happening before we get into the other parts. Alright, the first thing that I'm going to do is make 2 different cameras, and so if I just move this through here and then frame it up, I can create a camera from this particular view that I'm looking at. I might want to tab G just so I don't see all the game controls and stuff like that. The other thing that we can do is if we go under perspective, we can go to cinematic viewport, and we can see this within a 16:9 aspect ratio like this, and so this will help us to better frame up our image like this. And so what I can do at that point is come up here and say create camera here. And you can either create a camera actor or you can create a cinematic camera actor. I'll do a cinematic camera actor like this, and I can call this, I'm just going to double click on it and call this version 01 like that. Okay, and then I'm going to frame up my other shot, and I'll do something like this through here. And the reason I was seeing that is it actually had that camera selected, and whenever you do that, it gives you a little window preview of that. So if we just deselect that, we can get rid of that. So I think this looks like a pretty decent shot and through here like that. So again, I'll make another one. So I'll go create camera here, cinematic camera actor, and I will just call this one, click within through here, and then do underscore version 02 like that. So you can name these things whatever you want. Okay, so this will give us the ability to create screenshots from here. I could show you this, and this is what we're going to do for this. You can go up in this area and say high resolution screenshot, but I want to make sure that it's the resolution of my monitor and everything else like that. So we can do that by coming within through here, and if we hit F11, we can do this. Take a look in the viewport. So let's hit F11 like this, and if you have the Windows controls down there, you would need to hit Shift F11, and that will show or hide the Windows toolbar down there. Okay, The issue with this is if we do a screenshot this way, and let's just go ahead and I'm going to hit escape so nothing's selected. If we do a high resolution screenshot, and if we open this up, we can do a screenshot that's the size of the window that we see here. It'll say capture. And it'll take a second to grab that, and you can see we can click on this and it'll actually show us where that generated that from. If I double click at that and load that up, it's actually on a different window for me. And so let's pull this in through here like this. And so if I do view actual size, so it does have this size on here, but you can see it's got a little bit of piping for what we see in through here. So I want it to fill up the entire thing like this. So if we go back to perspective and we turn off the cinematic viewport and put it on default, I will have to do this. I will have to take a look through here, and I will have to actually change this from the regular perspective camera. And if we go in through here, we can actually select the other placed cameras that we have. So I've got this Cinem Cam Actor version 1, so I can go switch to that. And now at that point, I can just hit F11 and go in here. I'll tap G to remove all the game stuff. And remember, if you see the Windows toolbar down there, you might have to hit Shift F11. And so then now at that point, if I were to do a high resolution screenshot and hit capture, we can capture this, and that should pull this thing up here. We can take a look at it, and let's take a look at the size of this one now. Okay, if I right click on here and say view actual size, then we should be able to see this in full screen mode. And this is actually just the Windows picture viewer. If I right click in there and say slideshow, I can take a look at that. And so I've got an image that is the right size for the screen that I have. And if I want, the other thing I can do with this high resolution screenshot, and you have to be kind of careful about this, is if I do a screen size multiplier, and if I do something like 2, it'll actually give me a screen grab of the scene, but it'll do it twice the resolution of whatever we've got going on for the screen at that time. So that can be a way of getting really high quality, high res screenshots from things within through there. And I am recording, and I know it's been slowing things down a bit for this, and so I'll give it just a second. Okay, so here we can see here's the screenshot, and it kicked it out. And if we take a look at actual size, you can see it rendered it up twice the resolution of what we have in the viewport. So again, a pretty simple way for you to be able to make high resolution screenshots directly in the viewport right there like that. I think that's going to be a pretty good way for you to be able to frame things up, make these cinematic cameras. And you might want to make a folder group for this, and then call this Cine Cameras, something like that. But just keeping yourself organized with things. I already do have a sequencer folder that I made, so it could be possible I could just drag these into the sequencer folder and then get rid of this. And you might want to keep everything together that you're actually making for your cameras and then your level sequence. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at creating the level sequencer. So to add motion to our cameras, we're going to be using a level sequencer for this. And so we can go up to this area for the cinematics area, and we can say add level sequence to this. I've already made a folder called sequencer, and if you don't have a folder, you can just right click in there and say new folder. You can call it sequencer. You can name it whatever you want, to be honest, but I'm going to call it sequencer. I'm going to go in here. Now I've already got this one that I've created earlier to make the very beginning of the video and just show you what's going on here. So I'm just going to recreate this, but I'm going to put an underscore version 2 like this and hit save. And this will put us into a sequencer. Okay, so we looked at how we had our cinematic cameras that we did, and what the older versions I had is 01 and 02, and then this is the version 001. So I can actually click and I can drag this into here, And then this will give us, it'll automatically make this camera cuts as soon as we do that. And nothing's going to change, but it is going to take this as a sequencer. And if you notice, it put our camera actor in here, and we've got a little icon to let us know that this is what's visible for that. And if we close this up, we can also drag in our other camera that we have within through here. And so now we've got two different cameras, and we can switch between which camera are we looking at, camera version 1 or camera version 2. Okay, so now we've got two different camera views on there. Now we could take a look at the camera cuts real quick. This down here gives you a view of the time range that we're working with on here, and I think I expanded this to about 260 frames. I'll make the visible area about 270 frames like this and through here. Okay, and then in the camera cuts area, if we go to, let's say, frame 75, so I'll just use the left and right arrow key to get it right there. We can do this camera and say, I'm going to do a binding to Cinematic Camera Actor version 2. Now it automatically did the Cinematic Camera Actor 1 because that was the first camera that we put in there. Now if we look through this camera, these are our cuts, and if we do the time slider through here, we're going to have a time range of 75 frames in through here, and then this will go in through here all the way to what we said we wanted to go to was 260, or yeah, 260 right in there. Okay, so I can take this other camera and extend it out to 260, and then I can also, this is the end part of how, like if this is going to loop and we're going to keep looking at this looping, this is the end frame here. So if we right click on this little red marker, we can say set end time. Now I have noticed this, and I don't exactly know why, but it seems like it's off like a frame. So if we click this little button here and click and drag it, we can zoom in to this area, and we can grab that little marker, and then we can put it right at 260. So again, I'm not entirely sure why that happens like that, but there it is. And now we can click and drag our range slider so we can see the timing on this. Okay, so now we've got at least these two different camera cuts set up. Now if we go to the first camera and we take a look at that, what we can do if we go to the 00 frame, we can go and say under transform, we can click this little add new key at the current time. And so if we go to the end at 75, we can take our camera and we can move it, and we can reposition the camera. Let me just move this here, just zoom out just a little bit and frame it up. So this is what I'd like to do for this. I do have automatic create a key whenever the channel properties change. I think that's off by default, and so if that's off, you can move the camera, and then you got to go and you got to add the keyframe to it. But if that is on, then you can just move the camera, and you could actually click on one of the keyframes that you've actually made, and you can just change the position of this thing like this, and it will it'll update for you. Now if we drag the slider, let's take a look. You can see we can see this motion that we set up for things. And so my suggestion to you is just to do very subtle camera motions on things, not do big jumps for things, and that will probably work out better for you for just showing off your work like that. So I'm going to go to the second camera, we're frame 75, and then again I will go ahead and do a key at the transform for that, and then we can go to the end over here at 260, and then I'm just going to take the camera and reposition, and I want a shot that's kind of like this. Okay, so that added that key for us because that this thing's turned on through here, and now we can do the slider through there. Now we can take a look at our camera tracks, and we can see them go between those two different cameras. So we got that motion on the first camera, and then actually I should have clicked this up here. I was on the wrong camera. Sorry about that. So we can go take a look at the first camera movement and then the second camera movement, just like that. Now we can turn on, there is a looping right here, and you can play it and you can see what that looks like through that. Take a look at the motion. And if you're happy with that, and I am, the next part I'm going to do is I'm going to add a fade track to this. So I'm going to go to the 00 mark. I can go to tracks and then do a fade track like this. And you can see if we set this to a value of 1 right here, that will blacken everything out. And if we go to frame, let's say 10, like this, and then put that at 0, we can go from, let's see, black. Let's see, I didn't set the key, so let's do that. Okay, and then go to frame 10, and then I'll just do 0 at that point. Okay. Now I had to at least add that first keyframe to get this thing to work for the automatic thing. So I know that this is at frame 75. I'll go 10 frames ahead of that, like this, and I might hit the arrow key just to bump it over 1, like this. And I'm not really changing the value, but I want a keyframe there for that from 0, and then I want a value of 1 right here. So I'll just tap 1. And I'll go to frame 85, like that, put that at 0, and so that should go to black and then fade, just like that. And then we're at 260, so I'll go to 250, and then I will add a keyframe there, and then I'll go to 260, and make this 1, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and just save this sequencer, and now I can play this, and it should loop back and forth, and we should have a nice little camera fade for both of these motions that you see within through there. Okay, so that will give us everything we need at that point for things. I'm going to go ahead and just stop this here like this, and go to, let's see, this is, go to the front. Be able to push it here so we have something to look at. The next thing is we can actually render this out. So if we go to render this movie or video or image, let's go here, and it's up to you. If you want to render out individual frames, you can do that as BMP, EXR. There's different file formats for that. But if I want to do a video sequence, I can do an AVI. I've got a frame rate of 30 frames per second. You can choose the resolution that you want to put this at. You can use compression if you want. Maybe I could bump that up to something a little higher. Maybe I'll keep it at 90 or so. You can choose the output directory for things too. There's other things that you can do in there for cinematic mode. And I think if you go advanced, you can, I think it's going to be hiding the player. I'm hopeful for that. But I know there's some settings in there that will allow you to hide player, hide the HUD, and things like that. So I'm just going to go capture the movie like this, and you have to have everything saved. So once I do that, it's starting to capture. You might see this thing pop up like this and through here, like that. And it'll take a little bit of time to render everything out. Let me go ahead and pause the video while it's rendering. Okay, everything finished rendering out. I should have paid attention to the output directory, but I can go ahead and choose a directory for this. Maybe I can steal this location, hit Windows E, and then take a look at this through here. Try to load that up. And actually, because I didn't set that, what it's going to do is go to wherever your project is sitting. So I have this here. There is a saved folder, and there's a video captures area that you can see here, and it may have put your movie within that area. So I can just load this thing up and let it play, and you can see we're able to render out a nice little movie sequence and show off our work that way. All right, so there you have it. I think that's a good way for you to frame up your work, be able to take really nice screenshots, and then even if you want to show things off and you've got a level and you want to do a little tiny fly through and you want to render that. I know that's not a super in-depth look, but we are just getting our feet wet and we're just starting to learn a little bit about these tools. But that should give you everything that you need to show off your work.